friends. Hey, we are back again. Happy Youth Month. Welcome to We the Voice. I remain your brother Daneil Marco, and I'm here with another two inspiring young leaders. We are talking Catholic context, Alpha Youth. So, Marco, welcome. Daneil,
Good morning.
Welcome.
Good morning.
And please tell us about yourselves. Tell us about what you do.
Daneil, you want to go first?
Okay. Hi, I'm Daneil. I originally am graduating in my BCom degree this year. And I am a junior project coordinator. That's in the career aspect. And in the church aspect, I am the chairperson of my youth. I'm the chairperson of the youth in my community, as well as the vice chairperson in the Southern Deanery.
Thanks, Daneil.
Very cool. Nice.
And you're, of course, from Lenasia.
Yes, St. Thomas.
AKA Linz, AKA the ghetto of the South. I'm kidding.
Those are some fighting words right there.
Marco.
Hi everyone, I'm Marco. I am from Melbourne Church, the Blessed Sacrament.
Mm-hmm.
I am a life teen youth leader there. Have been for, I think, pushing on 11 years.
Wow.
So that's been really cool.
Well done.
Yeah, it's been pretty awesome. We're also involved in, or been involved in, a bunch of different programs, I think. Also, Alpha being one of the many that I've done.
Yeah.
A lot of fun there. We run a lot of retreats as well for schools, for parishes and things, usually like confirmation things and that sort of vibe. And usually just anything youth based at our parish is kind of like what I'm involved in, I guess. Myself, what I do, I'm actually a qualified biokineticist. So I did my undergraduate, my honors, and my internship I finished last year. And I've just gone back to study this year. And I'm now doing medicine.
Well
so
done.
I jumped in there and I'm in third year medicine at the moment. So that's where I am.
I take my hat off to all those who go back for studies.
Sure.
Thank you, Marco. Thank you, Daneil. Welcome. Happy to have you. Now, I've been, I suppose, privileged to journey with the two of you in many capacities. So I've heard many of your stories. I've had conversations with you, and I've been very moved by some of them. And if we specifically speak about Alpha and Catholic context, and especially with our young people, I'd like you to share with us your journey. So, start at the beginning of you as a participant or even as a leader, and just tell us how did it impact your life, your faith?
Cool.
Whoever wants to go first.
Cool. Sure. I think it's been a long journey with Alpha, a very cool one, a very interesting one. And I think that it itself has led to a lot of different journeys, which has been one of the coolest things about it. I can't remember exactly which year I did my first Alpha in when I was a participant, but it was more than likely, I would say, around 2015, somewhere around there, where we started doing it at our parish. And my best friend at the time, well, still my best friend, he got me, Mr. Manzella, he got me there and he dragged me along. And it was a lot of fun. It was cool. I think the thing that stood out to me then was that it was really chilled and there wasn't this like hectic, heavy air about it. There wasn't like people were trying to, make sure that I felt a certain way or I had certain ideas about certain things. It was, what are your ideas? And it was a space where I was able to share my voice about what I thought and how I felt. And that was quite cool. That was a change, as opposed to normally being in like a leadership position and that sort of thing. And I mean, that was the last time that I wasn't in a leadership position for Alpha, but I think that initial experience was a really big eye-opener for me, I think. And then from there, moving forwards, just going through the different years and the different spaces and places, because I haven't not only done Alpha at my parish, I've been involved with the Bryanston parish as well, where we were part of the online leadership team. So that was quite a change as well. Totally different vibe, totally different aspect, but also really in itself amazing too. Yeah.
Wow, the power of a safe space.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes me think of Cardinal Louis Tagle's quote when he speaks about Alpha. It gives a non-threatening door to experiencing church really as a community and family where you can just be.
Yeah.
Daneil, how about your experience? How did this impact you?
So my first alpha was an adult alpha in 2019. There was a youth group kind of setting as well. I wasn't really involved in that. And then a few years later, I joined the Bryanston online alpha where I was a guest at first. And second, I was asked to join as a host. And then after that, I got the courage to alpha at my parish. And that we completed last year. And we've been asked to do a second one this year.
It's that good.
It's that good.
And personally, how do you feel it impacted you, your personal faith, your journey?
So my faith definitely grew. I witnessed that. The people around me have witnessed it as well. I think Alpha gives you this, like for yourself, it's if you become very open to your faith, you're willing to share it with anyone, you're willing to just throw your opinions out there and you feel safe doing it. You don't feel like somebody's going to be judgmental. Alpha gives you that space to just be open and honest with anyone you meet, not even necessarily as sharing the same faith. You can speak about Alpha to any religion.
Very true.
I kind of want to tie this in with a question that I have coming later, but I think we can chat about it now in terms of it shaping you, especially as a leader. With Marco, with your journey, 11 years as a leader, and you say your last time as a mere participant, which I can imagine was refreshing in your first Alpha. But how do you feel the Alpha experience itself, both as a participant, but then also, or a guest, as we say, but then also as a leader, in the greater structure of your youth ministry? I know you guys are into Life Team, and you do amazing work, and as you say, retreats. What has Alpha given you as a leader?
I think I like the structure of the way that they set it up. So it's one of the only programs that I've actually seen that has videos specific for the leaders to like kind of prep them and give them an idea and that sort of thing. So I really like that underlying structure that it immediately sets out with, like, this is the tone, this is what's expected. And it kind of like lays it all down, which is really nice. And building from that as a leader, I think is really cool because it gave me, I feel, a very good foundation. And one of the things that I always like bring up that they specify is the whole, it's about the conversation. It's not about asking individual questions to your guests. It's about maintaining and fostering this conversation, irrespective of really where it goes. Like obviously, honing it in to certain points and that sort of thing. But getting this conversation going and getting people to express, as I felt I was able to talk about myself, actually like eliciting that from your guests that you have with you. And I think that that's such a vital aspect of being a leader in any ministry, really, is being able to listen and not just share your points, not just say, this is it. Oh, you heard them say this, A, B, C, D, E, right? It's actually getting to listen and like take that step back and like, hang on a bit, like, let me hear what they have to say. And that for me has been really fundamental, I think, in my leadership growth. And we've gone from doing youth alphas to adult alphas because we also have a prayer group on Tuesday nights where I've been in groups with, I think, people who, I think I might have been the youngest person in the group at one stage, and I was one of the two leaders, and still like being able to change things. But because you're listening to people, it's effectively the same thing. It's just obviously how you handle it slightly different because you're not having the same conversations. But those foundational aspects, I think, definitely shaped me as a leader. And then getting to lead with other leaders, and sometimes you're either the co-leader or the main host. And if you're the host, then it's more on you to foster that discussion. But as the co-leader, you're kind of praying and thinking about things and meditating more on what people are saying. And also that's very, very like crucial, I think.
Wonderful. Daneil, anything?
As a leader, like Marco said, Alpha gives you, before you do start the journey, they do kind of prep you on the correct ways to lead a group. But what I think I like about it is that they don't really put a difference between the leader and the guest. So whether you're doing it as a leader or as a guest, it feels almost the same. The only difference is that as a leader, you would like, if it's in person, you would have to prep the snacks and the venue. But in terms of being a leader and a guest, personally, I do think it is the same. And also, every time we do Alpha, it is different. something is different. The conversations you have with the people is all different.
Oh. I'm always so moved by the power of moving from, proclaiming to conversing and explaining to experiencing, and to see how even for the leader that's valuable. I love how you emphasize, Daneil, that it's really like you accompany your guest, you accompany your youth,
Yes.
rather than just being the one in the front and it's a classroom situation. It's like, here's some more Catholic rules for you to follow, right? Tick the box, tick the box.
100%.
Okay, that's powerful. Why do you think Alpha is so valuable in Catholic context, in our Catholic Church, and especially with our young people?
Must I go first?
Well,
Okay.
Up to you.
I think in the Catholic context, personally, when you grow up, you have, I don't want to say like, what do you call these things? Blinders, doors. Yeah, I don't want to say that, but you kind of grow up in like this is how it must be, that is how it must be. As a Catholic girl, this is what's supposed to happen. Like, you have a certain structure. So I think bringing Alpha into the Catholic context is really powerful because you're giving young people a chance to have their own voice. You, in a way, so if you are already in the Catholic faith, it's growing. And if you aren't in the Catholic faith, it's introducing people to Jesus and knowing that they can have their own voices, they can be their own people. And I think it's especially important to let young people know as they're growing that they are their own people and they do have their own voices. So bringing Alpha at a very young age to them is very powerful, because as they're growing up, they would think and they would, their decisions would be much more open, and they'd be open to themselves in making choices in their career, in their life, in their faith.
Wow, that's powerful, isn't it? I love that, because it's I think in the Catholic context, we very often don't place enough emphasis on the agency that each of us have as baptized persons, and the responsibility that comes with that, and how in the Holy Spirit we are all called to use our gifts, our charisms. Yes. And we had this in a previous conversation, and this is that synodal church, by the way, that Pope Francis is speaking about. It's all of us in communion, participation, and mission. And so thank you. That's a wonderful way to see that we can create a space where young people can feel like, wow, I am really part of the church, and I have a role to play, not graduate after confirmation and only come back to get married or baptize my child.
Yeah.
Marco, how about you?
I think a very, very similar answer, I have to say, where it's, again, having run both youth and the adult Alpha, just seeing the different perspectives that people are able to open their eyes to, I think is really, really cool. Because, I mean, I've even had where I was working in 2018, and I even invited some of my colleagues to come through, who also not Catholic at all, not some. I think the one wasn't even Christian, but they were so open to the idea of what I'd explained to them that they still came through, and they felt that they were able to ask questions, to be able to say how they felt. And that in itself is just so powerful, because you're allowing people to just create relationships with other people that they ordinarily wouldn't really have, and have discussions on a faith-based, like, yeah, exactly, where you just, that doesn't normally happen on a day-to-day basis. And in a Catholic sense, I think it's been really cool. We always, like, even with our youth currently, I would say, I would suggest, and actually I brought it up already, rerunning another youth Alpha with them, because the last time we did it was years ago. But they're at that stage where I know how youth Alphas run, I know what they speak about, and the way that they address them, it's not in a sense of, okay, this is the knowledge that you need to have in order to understand what we're going to be discussing. It's, these are the things, like, here are some basics. Let's start off with Jesus. Let's start off with your relationship with Christ. And that's where our foundation is going to be set. And to move from that, I think, is really important, because it's just like laying these like layers of foundation, and it's building on that relationship. It's building on, God loves me. And I think, like, a lot of the time it's just, okay, go to church, go to mass, do the things, do this, get confirmed, to your first Holy Communion, all those sorts of things. And we almost forget the foundations of the sacraments, the foundations of what it is, that it's predominantly our relationship. Why are we doing these things? To build our relationship with God. And I think that's really big. And Alpha takes that and literally puts it at the center and says, okay, you and God, that's what's important. And I really like that. And I've seen that, and I've seen people grow so much from being able to experience that. And often with our prayer group, we always start with Alpha in the beginning of the year. It's usually the first course that we run, because that's where we want people to see you're welcome, you're invited, you have a place here, exactly like you were saying, literally you have a place in the space. And then moving on to other things, moving on once they've like almost been allowed to realize that I can have a relationship with God where I don't have to be this perfect little, person. I get to make mistakes. I am a sinner, but God loves me. And I think that's so special.
Beautiful. Is there
That's amazing.
anything that you can recall about how it impacted the young people that you, especially like Daneil, you said you finished last year with your last Alpha. Is there any maybe stories or instances that you can recall of how you've tangibly seen an impact on the youth?
So yes, there is this one person that never really had, I wouldn't say never had a relationship with God, but it wasn't as strong. And we kind of, before Alpha started, we kind of were friends, where she used to confide in me with certain things. And then I invited her along for Alpha. She came, and now her relationship with God actually inspires me to read the Bible every day. That's crazy how the roles switched and reversed. We now, instead of like me motivating her to come to church or me motivating her to read a certain scripture, it's now the other way. Or like all the young ones like TikTok and Instagram. Most of our things that we share is faith related. And it's crazy that I was once that person. And I think she kind of like grounds me in a way. She's younger than me. She kind of grounds me like, okay, let's come back. Let's talk about this. And she'll message me like randomly, I read this verse. What do you think about it? So people like her actually do inspire people like me to carry on or to do another Alpha. Because you could have like 15 people doing Alpha. But if it impacts the one person, then your job is done. So I think that's what makes me want to do Alpha again. Because if it helped one person, you don't know the next Alpha, the Alpha journey, how many people it could help. I think that's the story that stands out.
One of my favorite quotes from Pope Francis: every Christian is a missionary. I love how you emphasized there, how the roles switched. Hey, it just tells you
Very
again,
cool.
we are all called as baptized persons. Thank you, Daneil, for sharing that. Marco, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Definitely. I think it was the Bryanston online Alpha that we were running, and one of the guys in my group was so he wasn't Catholic at the time, and he was on the journey. He was thinking about it. He was considering it. He was actually in the process of starting to attend catechism classes, because he did eventually want to be confirmed, but he still, he was discerning. Let's put it that way. He was thinking about it and praying about it, and sure, the answers that he was giving and how he spoke about God and how he spoke about his relationship with God was, every session was sure, phenomenal. And then I think he actually came to our church at Malvern to then do like another Alpha. So I honestly, I got to see his journey and his process, and it was really amazing. And then to like meet him in person and to then follow that journey in person and have him in my group again, by the grace of God, and still be able to have these discussions and foster these discussions was really, really amazing. And then eventually I got to see him confirmed as well, which is really beautiful. And I think that played such a big role in that. And honestly, having those discussions and having that relationship was so cool. And honestly, like seeing him genuinely shed tears at his confirmation, crying because it was such a special event to him, was amazing. Like absolutely phenomenal, genuinely, like beautiful. And to see that, and then also he's even led with us on retreats. We've invited him as a leader to join us, and phenomenal. Like honestly did one of the best jobs, like sensational. And that's coming from somebody who he's been through a very rough time, very, very difficult life, and he's really experienced a lot of things that a lot of people haven't. And being able to see God in his life and in those moments and be touched to such a degree, just beautiful. Yeah, really, really beautiful.
That is beautiful. So we know, I think by now, for you as leaders, perhaps you're also aware that in the Catholic context, there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of hesitation. There's a lot of slowness and resistance to becoming this evangelizing church, which we're called to be, which in fact we always have been. But for quite a few decades now, we've kind of lost the plot. Paul speaks about the sandals of eagerness to spread the gospel. And that's an impulse we don't see all that much in it in many Catholics. And that's been my experience, and especially with young people. Last year, the theme for World Youth Day was Mary rose and went with haste, right? Luke chapter 1, verse 39. Receives the first privileged receiver of the good news, so to speak. Immediate impulse. Go and share the good news. And this is an impulse that I don't see and experience. What would you, as parish youth leaders, what would you say to other parish youth leaders about the importance of evangelizing youth and maybe running Alpha? What would you say to them?
I think do you wanna?
Yeah, you can go first.
Sure. I think it's really important, and I would definitely stress the importance of evangelization. Being involved in it for so long, and having seen so many people in their journeys, and being blessed to have that perspective of actually watching people grow, watching people move from participant to leader, to bringing other people in. I get so excited when our teens bring their friends, because that literally means they are evangelizing. They're bringing their friends with. And irrespective of the reason at that point, where it's like, there's some girls there, this is really pretty
Found
cool.
a boyfriend for you.
Imagine, right? God uses anything. And I think just seeing that is really special, because you get to see these kids grow. You get to challenge them on things that they would otherwise probably never have really thought about. And the tough thing, I think, is that in a sense of our faith, we have our sacraments and we have Mass on a Sunday, for example, and that's beautiful. And you have the readings, you have the gospel, and then you have the priest's homily ordinarily. But that is not in itself enough to form your own faith and to form your own relationship, because being passive in that sense, where you're just sitting and receiving and listening kind of thing, is not enough to foster that fire in them. I think it can start. They can, and don't get me wrong, some priest homily is phenomenal, and even God can touch you in one verse,
right?
But you have to grow that fire. You have to feed that flame within your soul, sort of, so to say. And I think that using Alpha as that platform where you're allowing kids to come in, or adults as well, to just, and actually honestly not just kids, adults as well, because oftentimes they haven't had that option for a very long time, and they haven't felt that space and place in the church. And to offer them something like that, where they can actually just be honest and open and be received and be loved and feel that, is amazing. And they then, the amount of people I have seen go and bring other people and call other people because they've found this place, is amazing. So I think that is so important, and I would stress that to everybody. And honestly, it's such a great tool to be able to use.
Yeah.
So I think Alpha definitely phenomenal as something like that, to promote evangelization, not just to help people in their own journey, but to help those people help others in their journeys.
Amen. Daneil, anything you want to add?
I think it's more or less the same as Marco said. It is important to stress the fact of evangelization. I think also in the way like young people are, it's in most of them you don't see like the fire and the need for wanting to know Jesus, wanting to go to church, So I think bringing the Alpha concept in kind of, it doesn't give them like the full Catholic experience, like, Mass and then Holy Communion, all of that. But it does give them, in a way, a space to be themselves, to know, okay, I'm doing Alpha, this is what it's about. Do I want to explore more? Do I want to just leave it where it is? And fortunately for Alpha, you never just answer a question and that's the end of it. There's always something more, and it goes further than that. So like I've also witnessed, like I've said, they asked me to do it again. And surprisingly, the ones that asked me to do it again asked, can we bring a friend? My friend is not Christian, but it's my best friend. So as youth leaders, it's something exciting. Like, yes, you aren't a Catholic. Yes, you aren't a Christian, but we don't know, by you sitting in one of our Alpha talks and sessions, we don't know what we're going to learn from you. So evangelization, you can see it is happening. And I'm glad that Alpha is the tool that people are using it to evangelize further.
I think to touch on what Daneil said there, actually about asking the questions, and that there's always another question. I think Alpha is a really great space for people to like allow themselves to realize it's okay to ask questions, and it's okay to say, oh, I have a doubt about this, or I don't understand this, because that stems from a lack in knowledge about that topic. And what we always say is, well, that lack in knowledge and that doubt, that question that you have, is God's call for you to grow and to learn about him more, because that means you don't know him in that situation. And I think even then again, like, people always think, oh, I'm doubting, I'm terrible, I can't, you
Catholic guilt.
Literally, you put that Catholic guilt on yourself, and that's crazy, because how are you going to learn if you don't ask those questions? So we always say, ask the questions, please, like, ask them. If you're struggling, ask the questions. And then that leads to that evangelization, because if you don't have the answers, how are you supposed to preach and speak about that to your friends, to your colleagues, whatever it is? And if somebody asks you a question one day and you don't know, so that having that growth in faith, having that growth in knowledge and understanding, because you were brave enough to ask those questions, is then allowing you to evangelize so much more effectively. And I think that's something, again, it all ties into those foundational levels.
Right. So Daneil and Marco, do you guys think young people in general, both inside the church but also outside the church, are curious about the faith? And what sort of environments do you think we should create for them to explore the faith?
Yes, I go. You go.
Up to you. I'm good.
So first, I do think that they are curious about the faith, most definitely. That's what I've witnessed in Alpha, with the questions that Alpha gives you. And you can see that they are interested in their faith by asking the questions and not leaving, as I said before, not leaving. When the question is asked, they don't just leave it as is. They have a very intriguing mind. Okay, this is the answer you've given me, but why are you giving me the answer? Like, it happens even outside our Alpha journey. It happened a few weeks back at our normal youth nights. We picked a Bible verse, spoke about it, we asked questions, and then there was more questions. There was follow-up questions as to, if the youth leader gave you an answer, why are you giving me the answer? Where can I find it in the Bible? Why are you saying that? So they are curious about their faith. But I also think, in terms of environments, not many of them like to just sit in a church. Like, I've noticed, we had a few nights with youth outside of the church, like bonfire nights. It is the fun part, but you're also sitting and you're talking, and that, in a way, that is kind of a safe space, because you don't feel, okay, I'm in a church, I have to say the right thing. It's now you're in someone's backyard, it's a fun night, let's have conversation about Jesus, and then it flows, and it's very open-minded questions and answers. So I think in an environment, it's good to take the youth out of the church, in a way, to just open their minds and, to be free, and then kind of ground them back.
Sure, my answer, yes, definitely. They have so many questions. They are so curious. Working with the youth so closely, because we have our youth group that we've been running. Sure, they have so many questions. They have questions that I've never heard of, and it's amazing, because, like Daneil was saying, we get to learn. We get to learn from their questions, because if they challenge us on something that we don't know, It's crazy. How many times you get asked?
Yes. And you don't even have the
idea.
right
Like,
answer.
I have never heard of that before. And then the best line, but I will find out for you and bringing it back. I think it's very important because I'll use an example. One of our he's become a good friend actually, who is a member at our youth group. He was looking for something. He wasn't Catholic, and he was looking for friendship. He was looking for how to socialize because he didn't want to just go out drinking or go out partying and that, because he was of that age. And he was literally scrolling through social media, happened upon one of our posts that we had on Instagram, and thought, why not? Let's see what this is. And sorry, Angela's alarm going off.
Don't worry.
And he just decided to arrive at our church. And unfortunately, he arrived on the very day where it was an Exalt at Rosebank. So we had taken all of our youth and taken them to Rosebank, and no one was there. And thank God he came the next week. Again, just he came, he arrived.
Wow.
And from then on, to make a very long, I think like 3-year story short, he journeyed and he found this space and this place where he could be himself. He didn't have to put on a facade. He didn't have to meet certain expectations, because he came in saying, I know nothing. I don't know any of this that you guys are talking about. But he came in with an open heart and an open mind. And he just got confirmed as of last year. And amazing. Actually, no, it was this year. It was this year. He just got confirmed this year. Sorry, the year's a bit of a blur already. He just got confirmed, and amazing to see that growth. So I think is what I would say to other youth leaders about that is definitely, like, you need to be able to allow people to find that space. And because they have that curiosity, they have that need. Not only do they have questions, but we're not just here to teach you about the gospel or to teach you about certain readings or this teaching of the church. It's about how we live our lives, because that's ultimately what we're being called to, is journeying with Jesus every day and implementing those things that we have learned in our daily lives, in our interactions with other people, in the way that we just deal with certain things, how we make our decisions. And they have all these questions, and they're literally, they're hungry and they're waiting. So to be able to provide for that need, I think, is a really beautiful thing to be able to do, and it's a gift in itself.
Oh, that's great. That's beautiful. And I'll sort of ride on that and say, since they are so hungry, and I think we all are, and that's great. That's a good ache. It's a good ache. In some sense, I think we can call it the eternal ache. Our hearts are restless, Lord, until they rest in you. Let's talk about then that journey. So we talk about ongoing formation, and I want to wrap up with that. A popular question, I think in all churches, is what comes after Alpha? So what next? And so what has your experience been of integrating Alpha into your Catholic youth ministry in general?
Do you want to go?
Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, it does. I think that's a really interesting question, because that question in itself, it shows more about the leaders, I think, because if it's about the what next, it's not just a challenge to get people to whatever is the what next. It's a challenge to the leaders, I think, more so, because it challenges you to grow, to then provide the what next, or to find the what next for them and help them and guide them to that. And I think that can honestly, unfortunately, cause a lot of stagnation in the church, where you get caught in this like cycle of doing the same things again and again and again. And as beautiful as they can be, it has to be growth. And I think, I can't remember who said it, probably one of my teachers in school, and they're saying, if you're not moving and actively running towards God, you're moving away from him, because standing still means that he's like, everything's carrying on, and you're actually then distancing yourself if you stagnate. And that challenge is then on you as a leader to be like, okay, the what next, and then get them to that what next. But we've used it as, like I said, in our prayer group, as that foundation, where we've then gone on to running different seminars, different programs. And because they've had that original foundation of that I have a safe space. I have a leader that I'm probably going to have the next time. And we do try and keep that as well. So especially like in our youth groups, we try and keep the same kids in the same groups with the people that they've now grown comfortable with the same leaders, because then you just start to form these bonds and this intimacy, which is really amazing. And you can then start challenging them in ways that you wouldn't be able to challenge somebody that you didn't know and you haven't journeyed with. So to use that alpha, and again, like that's why I said I would love to do it again in our youth group now, is to start setting that foundation, meet them where they are, and allow them to show us where they are, rather than just trying to be like, okay, cool, we're doing this night tonight, guys, we're going to talk about this. Where are they? And I think it's quite a good tool to use as an assessment and like a judge. And then you can see the what next, and you can use it as that, okay, this is my stepping stone that alpha is going to be the what next, to help me get to the what next. And I think that's how we've used it before, and definitely how we'll most certainly keep using it again.
Thank you. That's valuable. Daneil, you want to add something?
Yeah, I think in terms of the what next, keeping the alpha context in mind is just to carry on going. Even though the alpha journey has stopped, you can continue the conversations. You can continue gathering in small groups at coffee shops, at someone's house, around a fire, because it is winter, just to have those, intimate conversations with, Marco said, like with the group that you have formed. Because over the alpha journey, you sort of are in the same groups when you in your small breakout sessions. And you do form a friendship, a relationship with each of them. So it is a good thing to keep it going after alpha, whether it's just your small group that meets and talks about even your week and how your week, just to keep that relationship, afloat, so that if there is ever a chance that you do need one another, okay, I feel comfortable with this person because of the journey we've kept in touch, and just to have that relationship with them.
True.
Great. All right.
Very true. That's actually, I have to say that's one of the really big things in terms of a what next, actually, that I didn't think about, is those inter guest relationships that form, because they start to challenge each other, and they start to form these friendships, and that's so cool to see them, and then you hear about like what they've then gone and done on their own, and they've grown like this, and they've now like started their own thing, and it's phenomenal. It's really that's actually one of the big like almost unseen, and sometimes you don't get to see that as the leader, unfortunately. And maybe God blesses you to allow you to have these little sneak peeks every now and then. But a lot of the time, we're just called to give them that and then hope for that. But it does happen, and you do get the chance to see it. And then, like you said, if God has touched that one person through you, let's say, it's always worth it, immediately worth it.
I think that's also where evangelization comes in. After the alpha course, by you keeping in touch and by you, like with your relationship, you're keeping it afloat. You don't know something that could happen 3 weeks after alpha. You don't know how your relationship with that person will bring another person into the faith. So to keep those relationships you made in alpha, just keep it going.
Powerful. Thank you, Daneil. Thank you, Marco. So, young friends, sounds to me like we are the voice. We are the missionaries. Thank you for joining us. Catch you next time.